Give a brief background. So today's applications are more demanding requirements than ever before. A small application developed for handling just a few users and very small data might become successful, and this could easily outstrip the underlying database management system. I didn't have the fortune to write such an application, but I know most of you guys have done that. We need some database which scales seamlessly to handle large amount of data. So who else to talk about this topic other than my friend and our own technical evangelist for Coldfusion, Mark Takata. So he has 20 plus years of he's a 20 plus year old veteran in application development world with wide ranging experience across, multiple industries. Obviously, he has worked with various stakeholders, and yeah, he talks a lot about himself. So you know who he is in all his social media forums. One thing you guys didn't know, that in his spare time, he could be found working out to get on the next American Ninja Warrior. So next season, yeah. Or if you had been recently following him on social media channels, he has been asking his better off for to buy a motorbike, which has been vehemently shot down, So,
yeah,
Mark,
100%.
I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't go there for you.
No,
over to you, Mark.
I might get a toy motorcycle. Thank you, Kishore. All right, let's get rolling. Let me get my screen. Oh, this is always fun. Let's play which screen is the correct screen roulette. That is not the right screen. Oh my goodness. But you know what? Oh, goodness. One of my favorite. Let's see. Sorry, folks. Stop sharing. And let's try this again. Was that it? Oh my goodness. Am I just not? I am just really bad at this. Sorry. I know, Joshua. Like professional. Yeah, but we didn't say professional what? Oh my gosh. All right, hold on. My goodness. Is it maybe this one? Okay, I'm running out of screens. Oh my goodness. Seriously, I am running out of screens to share. I only have 3 or 4, well, maybe 5 or 6. Is everyone seeing my, I'm just seeing a blank screen here. Hold on. This is why I like to upload my stuff normally. I am just going to move to a screen that I know I have stuff on. There we go. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Moving over to the internal display, and from the beginning, here we go. All right. I swear I've done this before. Hi, everybody. My name is Mark Takata. I'm the technical evangelist for Adobe Coldfusion, and today I'm going to be doing a talk on delicious vanilla spas with CF 2021. And I know you might notice, oh, where's the No-SQL, Mark? What happened to that? Well, yeah, there's SQL in this. I apologize, but I can explain, and I will actually show you some really, really cool stuff with No-SQL. I really will. You know who I am. I don't need to introduce myself, but let's talk about what we're going to learn today. So some of you have seen my talks before will recognize some parts of this talk that I've kind of redone, but really this talk is about rapid application development. And what is it? What is this methodology? We're going to talk about how to set workflows up for that style of methodology, why CF is ideal, for doing this type of methodology, tools to use, when to document, why you really want to use single page applications, and hey, maybe not, maybe when you don't want to use them. And then this is the part where things kind of go off the rails, because I used to talk about things like intercooler and HTMX and all of these JavaScript frameworks, but we won't be talking about that today. We'll be talking about just regular old plain Jane vanilla JavaScript to make your asynchronous spas work. So it will be super, super cool. And I still have love for HTMX. I still have love for intercooler, but based on some feedback, which I'll get into a little later, I decided to do a talk in another direction. And then we get into code samples, and there's going to be a lot of fun there. You'll get to see all of my awful code. It'll be hilarious. So what is RAD? Well, like puppies are rad, obviously. Sharks are pretty rad. The amazing, Betty White, may she rest in peace, was rad. She was awesome. But today, really, what we're going to talk about is RAD as an agile methodology, right? So this is actually a methodology for creating applications in a particular way. It's also known as RAB. Rapid application building is another name for it. And really what it focuses on is it's less about planning and more about the process of building and being adaptive and kind of working your way through it. You prototype and get things to the screen rather than making huge specifications and building off of that. It's very iterative. It's feedback driven. It's designed to fail fast, right? Like that's the hot new thing, is like fail fast and refactor. And there's specific versions of this, by the way. There's actually like rule sets about this. I think a few people have come up with very, very specific ways of doing this, but we're going to focus on just the general rapid application building, rapid application design methodology today. So what are the benefits? Why is this sweet? Why is this like guy up on my screen talking about this right now? Well, so it results in improved code quality. And I know, well, when you see my code, you're going to be like, I don't believe you, Mark. But what you're gonna say immediately is like, wait, if you're doing things as fast as possible, how does that result in improved code quality? And I just want to focus on that for a little tiny bit. It improves your code quality because it allows you to iterate, and through your iterations allows you to get closer to what the client finally wants and to code that is better. None of us, well, most of us, don't code amazingly and awesomely and perfectly the very first time. And certainly none of us code to exactly what the client wants every time, because the client doesn't know. We don't necessarily know. The business analysts don't really know. There's just a lot of gaps in what they believe and what you believe and what the code ends up looking like, right? So what inevitably happens is no matter how much you spec, no matter how much time you spend planning, inevitably when it goes to the client, when it goes to the person who's going to be the reviewer, the stakeholder, they will come back to you with, wow, that's great, but why doesn't it do N? And I thought you obviously need this particular feature, right? And so of course you go, oh, all right. And normally we fight against this, right? This is verboten. This is not something we want to do. It's code creep, right? It's change creep. It's just bad. Usually we fight against this. But what rapid application development methodology says is lean into it. It's never going away. I mean, unless you don't have clients, which I don't know how do you get that job. But if you have clients, they are going to have ideas that are going to be different from yours. And they're going to want changes down the road because they want what they want, even though they don't know what they want yet. And what this ends up resulting in is there's less chance of failure at the end, right? Like how many of us have gone through a real long, arduous development process and just run out of time and not quite gotten to the end? You know, phase 2, we all know that, right? Phase 2, phase 3. So many phases. Well, why does that exist? Because we run out of time in the initial thing, possibly because we spec'd it in a particular way that didn't match what was going on. And sort of oddly, this means that hitting the deadlines and budgets actually ends up working because we can know what those are early on, right? The products will be closer to client requirements and desirements. And it results in a higher amount of open communication, which, by the way, is an issue here potentially. What are the drawbacks? Well, it's really uncomfortable. It's, let me just tell you, a lot of people feel a super amount of trepidation with the control-delete thing, right? Like, you've been working on this is your code, this is your baby, you love it, right? Maybe you got a tattoo of your application.cfc on your arm, and now you're being asked to like destroy it and blow it away because, I don't know, somebody decided they wanted something else. Well, that's okay. You just gotta deal with it. Code is transient. It's there and then it's not there. I control-delete my code babies all the time. Nice, Greg. It really is something that you need to lean into and get comfortable with. And it takes time, by the way. Even for me, as I talk about my project for today, that I'm going to be showing you, I actually control-deleted probably about 75% of it throughout the development. So another potential drawback is that there's missing non-interaction requirements. And what do I mean by that? Sometimes there's things in the background that happen, algorithms, calculations that occur that don't have that UI layer, that there's not a handle to grab, there's not a button to press. Things are happening in the back, and there might be layers to them, right? It might be really complex. You're taking your complexity and you're pushing it back into the stack where all the computing is happening. Well, the issue there is that if changes need to happen there and the user is not really aware of what's happening back there, it can result in the wrong answer, right? I'll tell you a quick story. I used to work for this company that did financial apps, and we got a change request on a page that was about 3,000 lines of code. It might have been more. It was a horrendous page, and we got changes to it that were fairly complex, actually. And we did the work. We weren't doing rapid application development, really, but our team was pretty fast, and we kind of did a quasi version of this. So we got it back to the testers, who were also the business analysts here. So the QA was being done by the business analysis team, which can kind of preview the impending disaster that is coming very quickly down the road at us. And so they checked it in. They greenlighted us. Right? You go ahead. It's good. Push it to staging. Let's push it to preview. And the client came in who had initiated this change, and they took one look at it and kicked it back and said, "This is what is this? Right? It's all wrong." And so we, of course, got yelled at, and then we went to the team and said, "Hey, you guys greenlit this. What happened?" And they literally said, "Well, the numbers changed from what they were before, so we thought they were right." So don't do that. The next thing is, I mentioned communication before. It requires active stakeholder participation, right? You need to be in communication with the people that are going to be the people who check this off because they need to see it. Your job is to get it in front of them as soon as possible, as quickly as possible, as often as possible. But their job is to actually review it. So if you've got folks on the other side of the planet that take 12, 14, 24 hours to get you feedback, this ain't going to work because that ain't rapid, right? This needs to be something that people are putting in effort and are willing to put in the time as a client to make sure that the end product is great. If they are not, then this is not the methodology for you. And if you try it, it's going to break horribly. And finally, you might have heard of this hack and test thing. And I just want to be clear that rapid application development methodology is not hack and test. Hack and test is, did that work? Nope. Did that work? Nope. Did that work? Ooh, it compiled. Sweet, push. No. So that's not exactly what that is. You still want to code well. You still want to use patterns that fit. You don't want to use anti-patterns if you can help it. I mean, sometimes you stick them in there with the knowledge that you know this is going to get control-deleted down the road. You still want to show it to someone, and they're in your office in 5 minutes, so go ahead and do that. Right? You have to make that determination as a developer. And I'll talk a little bit about like who this is ideal for, by the way, in a second. But finally, a focus on microtransactional design, which is really what you have to do here. You build little pieces and push them out. Sometimes if that's not architected well, then it can lead to really poor scaling. So who's this for, right? It's really for small to medium projects, honestly. Can you build big projects with it? Yes, but boy, oh boy, do you need to have a great team that's super in sync and full of architects and really high-end developers, right? The small to medium stuff, you need pretty experienced devs who've done this before, or juniors with really strong mentorship and support, because again, Control-A-Delete's terrifying for new devs, right? They don't quite get yet that their code is going to go away at some point. Code doesn't live forever. It's not the Highlander. You don't really, what you really want is user interaction heavy apps, right? Not stuff that's happening in the back. Not really things that are just like API to API, unless you have a team on the other end that's really knowledgeable about how it's supposed to work and can give you feedback on that, because that's kind of hard to, you have to use specialized tools and all that. And the final one, I'm going to get a little bit of grief for maybe, but honestly, just for me, non-life critical systems, right? I'm confident that the end product is going to work, and I'm not going to ship anything that's not ready to go. But at the end of the day, if you've got a heart monitor or something that you're building, just take your time. It's okay. Just take your time. Like do a different methodology. Now, do people do RAD for that kind of thing? Yeah. So some workflows, some ideas about workflows. The main thing is minimizing time to screen. So both locally when you're coding and for your testers, for your end users, for your stakeholders, the less steps and the less output options, the better, right? There's less opportunity there for confusion. You want to use your software management systems in a smart way. You really want to leverage them for what they're capable of. CI can be your friend if it's set up well. In some cases, though, it's absolutely a hindrance. And I'll give you an example there. When I first started in Azure DevOps, we had a setup. This is actually the same team. with the earlier example, we had a setup that took 9.5 minutes to build our C# code when we pushed it up there. And so to get it in front of testers basically took about 10 minutes. And we often were trying to push multiple times a day, sometimes multiple times per hour if we could. And that 9 minutes absolutely killed us. There was no way around it. There was no way to push. If I had one line of code that was different, I could not go through the CI. It was part of the entire process. And at the end, what was determined was that we were waiting on other jobs that were happening, and basically people were cheap. They didn't want to pay for workers. So we finally kind of revolted a little bit and told them to buy 3 more workers, and that dropped to maybe a minute. So yeah. So that's something that you really need to think through, and work with your DevOps team also and your architect. Make sure they understand what's going on. Speed is critical, right? The round trip time is so important here. You want to code it, you want to test it, you want to preview it locally as much as possible. Don't wait to throw it up somewhere and have a build and then do that and then look at it and realize, oh, that button's not supposed to be green. Yeah, don't do that. The comfort of development is paramount, but you also have to think about safety. So I've been a little bit cowboy here, but the issue here is that you're going to be deleting your code a lot, and you really want it in some kind of repo, right? So the ideal here is to have a CI that goes into a repo that tracks your stuff, that's fast, that's set up easily, that you're comfortable with, that you use a lot. The source of truth for all your code needs to be in a repo, not on a hard drive sitting on your desktop, like we all used to do back in the day. So why is Coldfusion so good at this, right? Well, as we all know, it's designed for speed. It's designed to make hard things easy. There's black boxy structures in it, which, yeah, okay, some of them are not so great for production stuff, for long-term stuff, but my goodness, are they useful for just getting things up there to show someone, hey, this is what a map looks like. So quick aside, my favorite tag in Coldfusion is CFMap. Not dot map, but CFMap. And you're all going, does that even work anymore? And honestly, I can't answer that. I haven't used it in a while. But the reason that tag is my favorite is because a long time ago, my mom moved to the city that I live in right now. We were looking for an apartment for her. And she got a bunch of addresses for apartments that were available from a friend of hers, but she couldn't understand how far away they were. She wasn't comfortable with the area. She didn't really want to drive around. And she wanted somehow to visualize this, but she didn't really know how to do that. And so she brought me that, and in front of her, I pulled up my IDE, I put in CF Map, I put those addresses in, and I loaded it up in a browser. And it was the first time in her entire life that she began to understand what I did for a living for the past 15, 20 years at that point. And that type of ability to spin something up incredibly fast to show someone. Now, would I use that in production? Never. And actually, if I had more than 15 addresses, it wouldn't have worked anyway. But I didn't. And it was super, super useful. And we found a place for her actually in the same city that I'm in, West Sacramento. So the other thing that's really great about CF is there's a wide variety of coding methodologies you can use. We were talking about tags earlier, right? And I still love tags, haterade, whatever. I still love tags. I still code in tags some, and I still code in script. I'm all over the place, right? I use what I like and what's fast. And you can code in Java directly. Now with 2021, you can put Java blocks. At the end of the day, the important thing is it all compiles to the same Java bytecode, drop mic, full stop. At the end of the day, it's all the same speed, right? And finally, like the just-in-time compilation times of Coldfusion are just a really big time saver. I can't tell you how often I was waiting for my C# code to compile back in the day. It sucked. We were buying computers specifically to decrease our compile times. It was just really, it was bad. We were like, oh, how fast is this SSD? Oh, what's the compile time on this CPU? And normally people are like, oh, how fast, how many frames per second can I get in Counter-Strike or something? But we were talking about actually compiling our code. And that's silly when you think about it, right? You don't have that issue with CF, right? You just throw it up there and it compiles. So what are some tools for RAD methodology? Well, we just got out of an amazing talk about the new Adobe Coldfusion Builder extension for VS Code, which, by the way, is the best name for a product that Adobe has come out with, and I will die on that hill. It's the most amazing name ever. You want a Git plugin? I use GitLens. GitLens is pretty rad. I like it a lot. If you're still using FTP, why? But if you are, they do have FTP plugins. I didn't really have much luck with them back in the day when I was still using FTP to move things around. So if I still need to FTP something, I just use an external FTP program for that. And then you need some kind of remote database access usually, because you're probably going to have some kind of database that you need to look into at least, or maybe change structures, all that kind of thing. So, and by the way, ACBEFVSC, awesome, has RDS data view, and I'll be showing you that later, actually, with a really cool little plugin driver that I've been testing out, which led to the demise of my DynamoDB demo that I would have been showing you later. But anyway, you need a Git repo. GitHub is what I use. Azure DevOps has one. I mean, there's like a billion of them out there. Bitbucket, right? It's very important for looking back. You got to commit a lot. And then for docs, OneNote, Confluence, something public. Don't document in a notepad, again, on a hard drive on your desktop. You need to surface them. You need to have them available for your team, because that's the point of docs, is to be read, right? And to be useful down the road. So when do you document, right? Well, yeah, I thought we're doing this fast. You said don't spec. Okay, now you're speccing. Like, what are you doing, Mark? Well, okay, no, you're right. Generally speaking, getting the functional code out early is more important than detailed docs when you're doing rapid application development, especially during the prototyping phase, because things change. You don't want to spend hours on documenting a feature and then that feature either changes massively or boop, goes away. But if you overcome a major issue, a hurdle, document it, because, spoiler alert, December you is going to run into that problem probably again, and you're going to remember, oh God, yeah, I totally fixed that. What did I do? And you won't remember because you didn't document it, and then you're going to hate yourself. Security, sync, timeout issues, time savers, like help out your friends, right, on the team, because, hey, you're probably working with other people on this code set, and they're going to run into similar things that you are. And then especially if there's a big exception to the normal workflow that you're doing, like document it. Because at some point, sometimes someone is going to come in, look at that, and go, wow, what was Mark on when he did this? This is dumb. Why would you ever do that? And they'll change it, and then they'll break everything, and they'll go, oh, right, that's why. So once a project moves to endgame, you can use these. These are useful down the road. You can use them to create docs, to create functional specs, all the good stuff, requirements, all that stuff. Actually, the business analysts will love you for it. So let's move over to SPAs. And I need to speed up a little bit because I took too long to start at the beginning. Why single page applications? I don't know how many of you actually build SPAs, but they're pretty neat, and they're really great for doing prototyping. Why? Because there's less page scaffolding, right? Like it's one page and you're literally going out and you're pulling stuff in. You're using just kind of this like microservices oriented type of situation. And when you're prototyping, the main issue, the thing that makes SPAs annoying, Susan Kennedy says she hates SPAs. And I think I might know why. And it might be because state management can be a bear. But you can move a SPA to a traditional site later after prototyping, especially if you swap out like JS frameworks down the road. Like some JS frameworks are really SPA oriented, like if you're using like Ember, for example. They kind of focus on doing SPAs, but you don't need to use those, right? You can move to something else, use what you're comfortable with and what you're fast at just to get things out. Because at the end of the day, the thing you wrote it with is not as important as the thing, right? User experience in SPAs, by the way, can be like really awesome and fast. Nothing loads. Very few things load when you're swapping things out. And even if you do load a lot at the beginning, like let's say you've got something that's got like docs in it. Oh, hey, a doc reading SPA. Let's build that at some point. Once it's cached, it's super fast for the user. But why not SPAs? Why does Susan hate SPAs? So state management is not fun, like bookmarks, back button, refreshing. Yeah, like, is there stuff to handle it? Sure, there's tons of state management tools, but do you want to work with them? I don't know. I don't. And again, like when I'm talking about doing this stuff, some of this is literally just to get the functional stuff in front of the client, right? Some of this is prototyping. And it's not actually applicable for all site types, right? It's really good for tool applications. Like I built one before that was an insurance app. You log in, it shows you how much you owe, you can pay it. Didn't need a lot of screens. It worked great on mobile. I actually used PhoneGap to build that. And I think the back end was a combination of Coldfusion and C#. So it was like agnostic. It was really nice. Also, if you're not using something like HTMX or even like Vanilla.js to load things as needed, like if you just like preload a bunch of stuff, the initial load can be a bear, but obviously you wouldn't want to do that anyway. The final thing is like it's not a common pattern for a lot of devs. Like if you didn't do SPAs, if your team didn't do SPAs, if your company didn't do SPAs, you're probably like, what's a SPA, right? Why would I do this? All right, the one of the white elephants in the room. What are we doing with vanilla? Like I thought you used JavaScript frameworks. I thought everybody used JavaScript frameworks. So HTMX is awesome. Intercooler is awesome. Love it. But I was getting feedback from folks that it wasn't realistic for their teams to bring in this external app that's written by a few folks, right? Carson Gross was one of the folks that built it. He's got a team, but there was a little bit of like pushback, like, well, how big's their team, and how many people use this? I'm like, I don't know. It's awesome, right? And Carson's awesome. I've hung out with Carson before. Like he did a talk at one of my meetups before. Carson's great. But really, at the end of the day, some folks were not able to use it. And they said, could you do a talk where you did the same things or similar things as HTMX, but with vanilla or maybe another framework. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just with you knowing, like, this is doing things the hard way potentially, right? If you're using a framework, a lot of the things that I'll be doing today are built in for you, binding and doing that type of thing. However, I will say I'm still going to leverage the HTMX style div swapping behavior in some of my things, right? Like the thing that most people do is they build JSON, they loop through it, they build the structures in the DOM in the browser. I'm going to do a little bit of that, but I'm also going to be leveraging Coldfusion here, right? Because that's why we're here. It's Coldfusion Dev Week, right? And so I'm actually going to be using Coldfusion's ability to just build structures really quickly on the back end and server-side render stuff and just pull it over and replace pieces. I'm just going to be doing that by hand. And just know it's so much easier if you do it in HTMX. And the other white elephant in the room, I was told there would be Dynamo. Like literally, it says it in my talk title, No-SQL. But is there going to be SQL? Because you said there was going to be SQL. All right. So I had a surprise for all of you. I was going to use this really cool connector that I found out about really recently from CData that allowed you to view Dynamo and interact with Dynamo directly from CF Query. It's awesome. It was awesome. The idea is awesome. Brilliant. And when I saw it, I tried it. It was great. It was fun. And I just sort of put it away. I did the rest of the code. And then as I was finishing up, I was writing some of the queries. And my goodness, the connector was not connecting. And so we figured out, whoops-a-daisy, we've got some issues with bugs in this connector. It was not great. Now, it's very possible I was just using it wrong, maybe. But if I was, the documentation didn't exist on their side of things to fix it. And unfortunately, I think the issue here is that it was leveraging some of the correct. Hey, it was probably rapidly built. But like it's using this new way of accessing DynamoDB, which is very SQL-like. And I forget the name. It's like PySQL or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, and so the structures were a little bit different. And I'll actually show you some code running on it. I'll show you it running in RDS in a little bit. I burned a lot of hours on this. This was a lesson, right? This was a place where I should have Control-A deleted my brain function and just stopped and moved to using Dynamo in the normal way. By the time I figured out that this was not going to work and that this was broken, I just didn't have time to go back. And I did the thing that I'm best at and the thing that I'm fastest at, which was spin up Maria in the cloud and connect to it and do an async thing. So it's still in the cloud, it's still CRUD, it's still vanilla, and it's still delicious. But I will say, if you just need a read out of Dynamo, if someone else is pushing to Dynamo because it's super, super fast, which by the way, Dynamo is super, super fast, and you need to like ETL that out of it into some other storage facility, this works great. This actually is a wonderful tool for that. So just keeping that in mind. All right, code samples. Are you ready? Let's see. Let's make sure my code is in the right window, shall we? Here it is. Okay, so what I'm going to actually start out with is I'm going to show you the final product. Okay, so you'll notice the background is vanilla colored. Very good. It's delicious. So what do we have here? This is very basic. This is a contact manager. Woohoo! Mark pushing the envelope in tech. We've got a form. We've got a save button. The save button is green, and it's supposed to be green. And we've got a table, tabular data, below it with some buttons. Cool. All right, pretty simple. Let's look at the code. Let's close this side thing. Hopefully, can everybody read that? Hopefully that's big enough for folks. So what do we have here? Okay, this is pretty simple. We've got, the form is up here. Notice there's no action. So because this is a SPA, things are not reloading. so then what do we have? We have a table, and the table has a header, right? Okay, this is all easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And then you'll notice there is a t-body with an ID and a little blank thing with no results. Now, anyone that's used HTMX is going to see the t-body with an ID and go, aha, this is where the swap's going to happen, right? Now, of course, in HTMX, there would be like HX dash, targets and all sorts of other things on buttons in a variety of places. Oh, I don't know why is this here? Protection. Mark, gosh. All right, so let's talk about how this is going to work here. So if I go in here and I add a name, let's do Greg Stevens. Oops, because he's giving me crap for using tables. Tabular data is valid, Greg. Did I say that my code was bad? I think I said my code was bad. You can do anything you want. Where is my mouse? Okay. And email, Greg at Greg Stevens. Please tell me that's not actually your URL. And phone, his phone. This is his real phone number, folks. Make sure you call him. All right. So we're going to hit save. And there we go. So what just happened? All right. That was not a page load. Oh, I was close. Greg at Stevens.pro. That was not a page load, folks. So I hit save. This blanked out, and then we got Greg added here to the bottom. So let's take a look at how that happened. So if we look at the save button up here somewhere, we used update contact. And when you go to look at that, here is the function. And again, so this is where using something like HTMX, there would be any of this, right? Like you could do this in line with the actual code. Like you wouldn't have to write all these functions, does this all for you, which is why it's such a fast thing. However, again, if you're doing it this way, you don't have to fight management to get it in here. What is with the vertically aligned curly braces? Oh, because the Pac-Man got eaten by a ghost, dude. I told you. So what is this? This is your kind of standard, classic, old school XHR AJAX request, right? We're going to create a request. We're going to go we're going to go to an endpoint. I'm just using files. You could use an API. You could set up an API endpoint if you want. You could have JSON, I don't know, sitting in S3 if you want, whatever you want, however you want to pull stuff. In this case, I've got a CFM. It just makes it a little easier for me to show you what the code does. I send it params. So I actually build a params list here. And again, this is where a framework makes it much easier. All of those are just sort of build. Oh, Chris D called it. Yes. By the way, this is actually the CF VS Code extension in play. Good eye, Chris. You can kind of see the CF up in here. So I build the params out. That would usually be done automatically if you've had some kind of framework. And then I just go through I go through here. I open a connection. I send it over to that file. And then afterwards, I've got a couple of helper functions here, clear all forms and get all data. I'll show you those in a bit. Let's look at update data.cfm though, because that's where I'm pulling stuff in. Ooh, tags. So this one's in tags. You'll see it's all mixed up. I've got tags, I've got script. I'm getting the love from everyone for all my code here. Let's turn off the search. So what is this? Super easy, right? I am just taking the form data that I passed through AJAX. I'm checking to make sure that it's got a contact ID. And in that case, it actually didn't have a contact ID, right? Because why would it? There was no contact. I was adding Greg. So it would come in here and it would do an insert. So this is kind of a two-part. Yes, I know. You can SQL inject it. Stop. Yes, I know. It's a prototype. Are you on my computer SQL injecting me? Guys are killing me. And so what would happen actually if I wanted to edit, right? So if I hit edit, what this is actually doing is going out to the database and pulling, gosh, having these large things is killing me. And actually pulling a single piece out and then pushing that back to the calling function, which then takes all that data and puts it into here for me to edit. So if I wanted to edit this, I can say 1, 2, 3. Now there's a contact ID, so that function that I just showed you edits mine instead of adding that. So there you go. Yeah, you guys are roasting me all over. That's all right. This room is hot too, so I'm like suffering here. All right, I got 20 minutes to get through this, guys. All right, so that's editing. That's adding, right? How is this actually appearing in the first place? And this is sort of the fun, OMG, what are you doing, Mark? type of thing. But again, it's just kind of, oh wait, not update data. What are you doing? Get data. So this is the part that I was sort of simulating what HTMX does. So if you're familiar with HTMX, what you do, or one of the ways that you can use it, is you can take a viewport, that can be a div, that can be anything, and you change the verb on it and basically allow yourself to replace whatever is inside that thing, right? So you can create a div that's got a viewport to pull in data from your documentation or a picture or whatever the heck you want. You can use it to replace dynamically, asynchronously into that particular viewport, which is what I'm doing here. So I actually went out and, oh, look, script, and did a select and just grabbed everything. And then I use CF output tag because it's just less, it's less code, it's easier to show. And I build out these structures in here. I just server-side render this, and I drop that in right here into this table body. So there you go. And again, like so much code to do what HTMX does easily, but it works, and it works exactly the same way, and it populates it. Now, what would you want to actually use? Maybe like data tables here so that it got pagination. Yeah, you probably want to do that. And if you're using data tables and you're willing to bring in jQuery and you're doing all that, then probably the better way to do this is, instead of like rendering and pulling it in like I was, you can actually just connect data tables to the JSON output from your, you guys are arguing about indenting? You're killing me. You could just connect to the JSON output, and it would automatically, when you refreshed it, it would refresh the data there. You could use it to search inside of, you could use it to sort, and it's just automatically there. But again, I was trying to kind of avoid some of that. Although you will see, I actually have jQuery in here because I wanted to use Bootstrap because I'm vain and I wanted it to look beautiful, which it does. Look how pretty it is, right? So let's look at one last thing here. Let's look at the delete. And again, this is very, very similar to what we do everywhere else. And if I was maybe better and I was refactoring this, I could probably reuse some of these and put some of this into like helper functions and things like that. But again, it's an XHR request that I'm going to pass back to the server. I'm going to use this file, delete data. It could be an endpoint called /delete data or API /delete data if you wanted. And I just send it the params, and I post it, and it deletes it, which is super fun because, and I'm going to get, oh, not that. Sorry. Haha. This is really fun. Guess what happens, everyone, if you hit the X? Does it give you like a nice dialogue and say, Mark, are you sure that you want to delete yourself from the, oops. Right. So what would you want to do there? Well, you would want a modal that said, hey, you're about to delete something from the database. That's the D in CRUD. Maybe you want to think about, not doing that immediately, right? So again, features addition. This is kind of a prototype. And while I'm on the subject, I actually don't like building CRUD apps. I much prefer CRUD apps because database storage is pretty cheap and it's not jQuery mobile. Oh my gosh. I don't like deleting things from databases. I'd rather switch an active flag, and I actually have an active flag in here that I could have just swapped out and used to filter out. But since I had CRUD in the name, I didn't want to lie twice, right? So I only lied once with the NoSQL. Which transition? Let's talk about the NoSQL part. So here's a DynamoDB that I've got, which is super fun. I've got a table called contact table. Oh, live code. Oh my gosh. Nobody look at my password. It's a bunch of dots. All right. Check out the tables and whoopsie. Well, let's take a look. So I've got a table here, and it has all the same information, basically, as you can see, that I had in my earlier demo. And what I was actually using was a driver from a company called CData. They had a driver that allowed you to essentially create a data source to DynamoDB. Right now, people who read my blog, people who've watched some of my videos know I have a driver. Does Adobe provide you a personal driver? Yes, John. Yes, I drive around in a limo in my backyard. So, like we have implementation, we have an integration inside of CF 2021 with Dynamo. We totally do. It's there. And you can use it to read and write and do all the things. But me being me, I decided, I'm going to use this other thing because it's kind of neat. It's faster, theoretically, if it worked. It would be faster if I could just create a data source, right? So I'm going to have to log back in. Look at this. There's a AWS DynamoDB driver sitting in my DSNs. I don't know if anybody's ever, I know, Craig, right? That's what I asked Dave Ferguson if he's ever seen anything like that. He was like, no, I've never heard of that, right? Very cool, right? This is kind of neat. I know it's magic. Oh, the darkest kind. So I was super excited about that. And if you go into your VS Code and you have the CF extension and you have this driver and you open up RDS data view, you can, wait, why is this only of course, this is just showing me local. Are you kidding me? Oh, right. Yeah, of course. Yeah, no. AWS DynamoDB tables, and here you are. There's my columns, right? That are there. Or sorry, there's the tables that are there, and then here's the columns that are in there. Right? Pretty cool. I don't know. Well, I don't have any indices other than primary, but yes, it would show the indices as well. So yeah, cool, right? Pretty awesome. And then I worked way too long with this driver. I actually had most of this built using this methodology basically to try and do what I showed you earlier. Unfortunately, and by the way, right here, so CF query, right? Data source, select star from, this is SQL, right? Anybody who's done DynamoDB knows that the access for Dynamo does not look like this normally, right? And then let's dump it out. If you take a look at that, here's that file. Boom. Frank the Tank is a contact in there, right? They've got a phone number. John Farrar. You're debugging me, John. CF joke. So yeah, it works to read. Unfortunately, and so let's take a look at that code real quick. Right, so I'm doing a where clause, right? If I pull this out and I go back and I refresh, back to two things. So where clauses work, select all works, right? The problem here is that the moment you start to try to do updates or inserts, things go horribly wrong. They go completely sideways and in ways that are not very clear. Their error is literally quote, quote. It's literally quote, quote. I spent so much time debugging this thing and trying to get in there and trying to just like muddle my way through it and figure out where in the world and what in the world this error was that I was getting back from. Like literally, if you did a where statement in a select and then use that same where statement somewhere else, the where statement would throw an unspecified error. So is this ready for prime time? No. Am I going to pay for this driver? No. No, this is like a free trial. I actually have no idea how much this costs. And so whatever that cost is, though, it's probably too much because it doesn't actually seem to work. So I'm going to run with that and say, who's got questions? Oops. Boop, boop. All right. Can you rename a column through VS Code on Dynamo? I don't know, Craig. Maybe, theoretically. Will it actually work? Well, let's see. I can try it. RDS data view. Oh, whoa, hello. Columns. No, it won't let me. Sorry, Greg. All right, I'm going to look through. Let's see. Do I have questions? I've got yes and desktops. Okay. All right. So yeah, it's fun. This is kind of a play thing, but just wanted to kind of show that the stuff that I could do before with HTMX, you could do with vanilla. It's fairly easy. Could you write better vanilla JavaScript? I mean, literally anyone could because it's me coding. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I know some folks don't like spas, but they're a great way just to get something in front of someone without having 20, 30 views and then a bunch of stuff connected to them and all that. Let's see. Yeah, I think if I move to the editor, let's see. I'm wondering if this has no idea. Yeah, that didn't work. Sorry. Yeah, live code. I have no idea if it could do it or not. All right. So I am going to give away a card here because I think we didn't have very many questions. By the way, if you come up with questions later or are embarrassed to ask me about why I like Pac-Man so much and have a suit that's literally covered in Pac-Man, truth statement, you can always email me at takata@adobe.com. Here's all of my information where you can find me. I'm impossible to miss. But I'm going to ask a question about something I said during my talk. And the answer is not 43. And the question is, All right. Let me know when you guys are done. The question is, who was the original author of Intercooler JS? Go. Carson Gross. Boom. Joshua Ford got it. I said one line in the middle of my thing, and there we go. Damn, my PC throttle limited. Ben Forda is close in that it's wrong, but so are a lot of other things. Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone, so very much. It's been my pleasure to be speaking here today. I'm here all day long. I will be helping to host more talks, most of which will be better than mine today. I may even have another change of outfits. Who knows? The day is young. I'm going to swap over to, oops, not that. There we go. All right, everybody, give me all your votes, and I will see the person who strongly disagrees, and I will come and find you and probably have a beer and ask why you did that. But of course, someone immediately does it. Oh, I love you guys so very much. Thank you for coming again. I really appreciate you all sitting through my nonsense and ranting. Coming up next, deploy better Coldfusion code with CI by the amazing and incredible Pete Freitag. Please don't miss that. That is coming up here in just about, oh gosh, an hour or so, I think. It's on the calendar that you'll see in a minute. So I'm going to leave this up for just a few minutes. At 9, I will swap back over to the lobby so that we can all discuss why it's wrong to use tabs/spaces for indenting. Thank you.